we were saying that after we designated these roles, then we want to set the round duration. So we don't want people to stay and stagnate in the same role for too long. So we want to be able to say, okay, a round lasts, let's say, 15 minutes, and every 15 minutes there's a small break where people change roles. And for that reason, then we added the break duration. So sometimes we actually want every so often, let's say every 3-4 rounds, to take a predefined break of 5 minutes, like Pomodoro would suggest, for example, so that people remain fresh and able to keep on being productive. Then we want to set up the break frequency, which basically means, okay, how often do we want to have these breaks in terms of numbers of rounds? And then, of course, we want to make sure that we are able to start a round. So maybe this should go before in terms of priorities, because if we can't start a round, then we can't have a break. But right now, the idea was to put down the features.
Yeah.
We came on a route of defining some invariants, but Marco very wisely suggested that the more constraints we put, the less people will be able to use our application in novel ways. So I suggested to not be able to start a session or a round without having a driver and navigator. But Marco actually pointed out that if I'm a lonely developer and I just want to have a timer, this invariant will prevent me to use this application for myself. Instead,
Yeah.
being flexible about this rule allows even someone that doesn't want to participate in a mob to use this tool in a different way. So we would probably drop this or make it optional.
Yeah.
Maybe just checking how many people. If you are alone, then there's no point in asking you to have a driver and navigator. But if you're not alone, maybe we want to. I don't know. We will find out later. Right now, it's good enough to just discuss and find out ideas and edge cases. At this point,
Yeah.
we're only talking about features. So this is kind of an extreme case. Instead, at this point, we are still defining the rough idea of what we are trying to deliver first. So the next feature is to be able to pause around. And there's a difference between pausing and breaking. So breaking is something that is predetermined, and it's designed to give people space to recover, let's say, after a couple of rounds, 3 rounds, more rounds. A pause instead is something that is unpredicted, and if for some reason people have to stop, then we can pause the session, do our stuff, and then start it again. So for example, maybe we want to add another feature that says, well, we should be able to unpause a round so that we can
Okay.
move from where we started before. And now Pedro is writing it.
I'm calling it resume.
Yes, resume. Good. So we are also discovering the ubiquitous language at this point.
Yes.
I'm not.
Yes. And
I'm not qualified to define the ubiquitous language on my own, and that's, I think, one of the powers of mob programming. Mobs don't are not only for developers. I would suggest people to try having business people, business expert in the mob, because they can give perspectives and edge cases that maybe you didn't think about before, and actually allow you to discover concepts in your domain that will make your understanding and your coding simpler and more
and
more
also
declarative.
they begin to understand how difficult it is to write code in a good way, right?
Yes, but
So
also how difficult it is for people to communicate and to come up with a good idea and good design if they don't talk to each other. So these, as we know, coding, it's really a social activity, and that's why mob programming, I think, is so effective. And we will try to show this through these sessions. Maybe even inviting someone external to this group to join us and try themselves and give their experience and their perspectives on what we're doing. Now, we were at the resume of the posed round, so we can now talk about being able to track a session duration. So we want to know how long we have been coding, how long in total we have been working together, and we will see why this is important with a future feature. So, for example, we want to be notified when a round ends. So after, let's say, 15 minutes, we want to know that is now time for roles swapping. And when that happens, we want to be notified, maybe with a visual clue, with an audio clue, whatever, something that helps us understand where we are and what we're going to go. And usually these breaks take a little bit of time because people have to set up their environment, maybe start sharing their screen. So there could be a little bit of juggling, especially in the beginning, around these things. For that reason, we are not gonna set those breaks in stone. We just say, okay, now the round stopped, you have to start a new round. In the meantime, you do your swapping. And we also want to be notified when a break starts and ends. So when we are talking about breaks are predefined stops, predefined moments where we get away from the keyboard and take a little bit of time for ourselves, maybe checking emails, looking at your phone, going outside, taking a coffee, whatever, something just to refresh our mind. And of course, we want to be notified when that happens. And after that, we want to show in a visual way the progress of the round. So this is a feature to make force us into giving visual clues on the progress of the round, probably maybe with a clock or a visual element that represents the passing of time. Then we get into the actual rotation of roles. So roles can rotate in many different ways. It can be a random assignment, can be round robin, can be many different ways. We haven't decided yet. At this point, we are just concerned with the idea of actually just defining the features, so not much
The details.
details in here. And we already discussed about the poses that happens when around hands. So this is as I was saying before, a pose is different from a break. When a round ends, is not a break, it's just idle time to allow people to do the swapping physically. And then we want to set the as the last feature for now, we want to be able to set the entire session duration. So we can say, oh, I want the session to last 3 hours, or I want the session to stop at 2 p.m. because we have a hard limit. And I was suggesting to use the number of rounds, but Marco notified that, noticed that it's more likely that instead of defining the number of rounds, you want to set up a deadline or a hard stop for because you have other things to take care. So maybe we'll think about that feature and refine it in the idea of not only session duration but also setting the session and time.
Yeah, there's one thing that I've been noticing, and we've been sort of, because I've been taking notes of the ubiquitous language, we've been using session and round. And the session for me is maybe a group of rounds, and a round is one. I don't even know how to define it. We're going to focus
the
like a
most
Pomodoro.
granular interval of work.
Okay.
Yes, we also. I want also to emphasize the fact that none of us is natural English speaker, so bear with us for.
We are the majority anyway.
Yes. So.
Oof.
So you were saying that the round is the most granular interval of work, typically 15 minutes. So maybe we want to have some predefined values for the configuration that people can tweak and then save.
Could be. Should we add that? Should be able to set around the duration. Should we put a default? I love defaults.
Yeah, convention over configuration is a concept that is very well known now, but the idea is that, okay, you only tweak the things that you have to, not everything, otherwise
maybe
it becomes
like
too time consuming and boring. The idea is that we want to create a product that is easy to use and pick up without too much effort, cognitive effort and time effort.
Let's say that it's a product that I would use myself.
Yes.
If I use it myself, it means that even an idiot can use it.
Especially if you use it.
It is monkey proof.
Let's put 20 minutes.
It's
I like long breaks.
Marco's proved.
I'm going to put a 20-minute break by default.
What? 20 minutes? Are you crazy?
So there's like a break between the
15 minutes, 15. Your students are very lucky. They are really
but I'm saying I take 15 minutes every 4 sessions, every 4 rounds. These 4 rounds.
My students.
So every 4 rounds you take 20 minutes, and between rounds you might take 5 minutes. I don't know. We can discuss this later, but I like the idea that Alex gave, and I want to take note. I think making defaults is so much easier.
The other idea is that we want to get feedback as quickly as possible. So this is one of the core ideas that you will find on our book as well, which is the idea of getting feedback and tighten the feedback loop as much as we can, because the more often we have feedback and learn, the quicker we can adapt and steer to a more valuable solution. So in this situation, we want to be able to run our product as ourselves very soon, and if it requires some change, we will find out using it, and of course we will be accepting feedback from people using it as well, because the more feedback we get, the better the product will become. This is crucial for any product. If you want your product to be used, then go outside and get the feedback from people.
So I was trying to make notes as you were speaking, and I took a few notes, and then Marco joined in on the ubiquitous language. So there's a few things we probably need to define. And there's the features, and I tried to add some defaults. So what's next? What should we be doing next? Are we ready to go into user stories? Huh? Oh, start coding. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. This is the end of the video for today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's time to say goodbye. We'll see you on the next video. Don't forget to like if you like the video, and if you really want to keep up to date on what we're doing, don't forget to subscribe and buy the book. We need the money. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.